Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into the massive, and I mean massively controversial, launch of Pokémon Legends, Z-A.
Yeah, it's really something. This game seems to have split the fan base right down the middle, maybe more than any other Pokemon title has.
Absolutely. You look at the numbers, it's stark. Metacritic gives it a 79 from
Mhm.
critics. Generally favorable. Pretty solid, right?
Right, a good score suggests quality, ambition, but
Then you tab over to the user score, and it's just plummeted, a 4.7. Generally unfavorable. That's not just a difference of opinion. That's like two different games being described.
it's a huge chasm. And that's what we're digging into today. We've looked at, well, everything we could find. Hands-on previews, those critic reviews, IGN, Tech Radar, Nintendo Live, they paint one picture.
And then there's the other side. Tons of player comments, forum threads, just waves of frustration. That's where you feel that 4.7 coming from.
Exactly. So our mission here is to figure out why. What did Game Freak actually change that caused this reaction? We're focusing on two huge things.
Okay, what are they?
First, the combat. They completely ditched the turn-based system. It's all real-time action now. Big gamble.
Huge. And second,
The setting. Instead of a big open region, the entire game is just Lumiose City. That's it. A massive scaling back of scope, in a way.
so radical combat change, much smaller world. Those are the big bets. Let's figure out why they landed so differently for critics versus players. What were these gambles really about?
Okay, let's start with combat, because that's probably the most radical departure. Decades of turn-based battles. Gone.
Right. Replaced with real-time action.
Ah.
What does that actually feel like? People keep saying it's like the anime.
That's the key phrase, yeah. Critics especially latched onto that. It's fast, it's frantic, you're not just selecting moves from a menu anymore.
I read one preview saying like 20 minutes was enough to convince them this was the only way forward. But what's the strategy? Is it just button mashing?
Not exactly, though some players feel it can become that. The comparison that keeps coming up is Xenoblade Chronicles. You control your trainer, you lock on, you dodge enemy attacks in real time.
Okay, so the trainer is active.
Very active. And your Pokemon has its moves, but they're on individual cooldown timers. So you can't just spam your strongest attack like Earthquake over and over.
Okay, so you need to cycle through moves. Maybe use Hydro Pump, wait for the cooldown, use Thunder Wave, maybe pop a buff.
Precisely. And while you're managing that, you, the trainer, are physically dodging attacks. If you
Yeah.
get hit, you take damage. You can even get knocked out yourself, which ends the battle.
Wow, okay. So the trainer being vulnerable, that adds a whole new layer. It sounds genuinely strategic. Managing cooldowns, positioning, dodging.
It is when it works well. It demands constant attention. It makes even low-level encounters feel more engaging than just tapping A. That's the upside.
Right. But here's where the user score comes crashing in. If the idea is that good, why are players calling it clunky? Where's the disconnect in execution?
It seems to come down to polish and maybe information overload. While it can be strategic, some players found that after a while, especially in chaotic fights, it just felt like mashing buttons.
Why? What breaks down?
Well, the UI, for one. Feedback, like damage numbers, status effects, it flashes by really quickly. It's hard to read and react strategically when things are moving that fast, so you just kind of, react instinctively. Mash buttons.
Okay, UI issues. What else? You mentioned clunky movement.
Yeah, positioning seems to still be a problem. Sometimes your own Pokemon just walks into an attack.
Yeah.
Or your attacks hit a wall, especially if you're fighting on like a slope or uneven ground. It's frustrating when you lose control like that.
So the AI or pathfinding isn't quite there.
Seems like it struggles sometimes. And another thing, those classic status moves like sleep or paralysis, their strategic impact feels lessened. In a slower turn-based game, putting something to sleep could totally change the battle. Here, things move too fast for it to have quite the same weight.
Okay. Technical hiccups, UI clutter, maybe less strategic depth for status moves. But there was a high point for this system, right? Everyone seemed to agree on the Mega Evolution battles.
Oh, absolutely. The Rogue Mega Evolution fights are consistently called out as the best part of the combat. These aren't just regular battles, they're proper boss fights.
Like really challenging.
Yeah, think a 5, maybe 10-minute intense struggle against, say, a Rogue Mega Absol. You have to use everything dodging perfectly, positioning your trainer, timing your Pokemon's attacks between cooldowns. It forces you to master the system.
So those moments show the potential of the real-time combat when it's firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. They prove the concept can be brilliant. It just seems the moment-to-moment standard battles don't always live up to that same level of polish or strategic feel.
Okay, so combat. Innovative idea, praised by critics, potentially game-changing. But execution issues and polish problems frustrated a lot of players. That leads us right into the second gamble, Lumiose City.
Right. The decision to confine the entire game to just this one city, it's a stark contrast to the big, open areas of Legends, Arceus.
Why did they do it? Was it purely a technical decision to maybe help with performance?
That seems to be the main benefit, yes. By focusing the scope so narrowly, they achieved a much more stable technical experience. That's the trade-off.
And did it work? What does stable mean here?
Well, especially on the newer hardware, the Switch 2, it means a smooth, consistent 60 frames per second. That's a huge improvement over the performance problems Scarlet and Violet had. A really big win, technically.
Okay, 60 FPS is great, but what about the older Switch?
Yeah, that's important. On the original Switch, it targets 30 FPS. It's generally better than SV, but reports mention it can still have choppy cutscenes and longer load times, so that smooth experience really depends on your hardware.
Gotcha. So performance boost is the big pro of the smaller scope. But what about exploration? A whole game in one city. Does it feel alive or just cramped?
Again, it's completely polarizing. Depends what you value. For people who like intricate urban environments, they love it. The city is apparently very dense, layered, rooftops, sewers, back alleys.
And there are actual reasons to explore those places.
Oh, yeah. Reports mention finding rare Pokémon, like a Dratini, hidden away on top of a building. They've apparently put a lot of thought into rewarding that kind of detailed exploration. It makes the city itself feel like a puzzle.
Interesting. And the story benefits too.
It seems so. Because it's focused on one place, the narrative gets tighter. It deals with community issues, civic stuff, environmental conflicts within the city. Some compared it to the Yakuza games, where the depth comes from knowing one location inside and out.
Okay, Yakuza-style density, finding Dratinis on rooftops.
Hmm?
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yes.
There's always a but with this game, isn't there? What's the downside? Where does the restrictive feeling come in?
It comes the moment you look at the bigger picture, especially the exteriors. While the layout might be intricate, the visuals are heavily criticized. Words like lifeless and flat come up a lot.
Flat how? Like textures?
Yeah, exactly. Repetitive textures, especially on things like windows and balconies. Apparently, it gives large parts of the city this sort of static, almost artificial look, like paper mache, or as one review put it, Looney Tunes style. Not exactly next gen.
Oof. Looney Tunes is not the comparison you want for your big new Pokemon game. And what about catching Pokemon? How does that work in a city? I loved the open habitats in Arceus.
Yeah, that's another major point of contention. The wild zones where you find Pokemon are described as these small, kind of obvious fenced-in pens scattered around the city, like little urban zoos.
Pens? Seriously. So not integrated into the environment.
Not seamlessly, no. It sounds much more artificial, more segregated than in Arceus. For players who love that feeling of discovering Pokemon naturally in the wild, these city pens are apparently a big letdown. It feels like a step back.
And I heard something about the beginning being slow, even with a smaller map.
Yes, that too. Apparently there's a really long tutorial phase, maybe 2 or 3 hours, where the game heavily restricts where you can go and what you can do. Lots of hand-holding.
So even the potential fun of exploring this dense city is locked away for quite a while.
Seems that way, which probably makes that feeling of restriction even worse early on. You're eager to explore, but you just can't yet.
Okay, so we have this picture now. Innovative combat with polish issues, and a technically smooth but visually flat restrictive city setting with some neat exploration ideas buried inside. This brings us right back to that massive score divide. Why 8.10 versus 4.7? It feels like it became about more than just gameplay mechanics.
It definitely did. I mean, yes, part of that low user score is probably review bombing. That happens. But the reasons behind that frustration seem pretty consistent and go deeper. It's about value, expectations, and the franchise's history.
Value meaning the price tag.
Exactly. This is a full-price game, $70 or more in some places. And players are looking at these flat textures, these Looney Tunes backgrounds, and feeling like it doesn't look like a $70 game, especially from a franchise as huge and profitable as Pokemon.
So it feels cheap, like they cut corners on the visuals.
That's the sentiment, yeah.
Yeah.
Phrases like GameCube graphics kept popping up in user reviews. Whether that's fair or not, it reflects a feeling that the visual quality doesn't match the price or the series' stature. It feeds into this narrative of corporate slop, as you said, some called it.
And it wasn't just the static visuals, right? Other polish issues are mentioned.
Yeah. The big one, the one that seemed to drive people absolutely nuts, was the lack of voice acting.
Still no voice acting in major cutscenes.
Still none. And apparently it's really jarring in this game. You have these dramatic moments, characters emoting wildly, moving their mouths in total silence. It just pulled you right out of the story.
Wow. In 2024 for a major release. Yeah, I can see how that would feel incredibly dated and, again, kind of cheap.
It signals a lack of investment in what many consider a basic standard for modern console games. It breaks immersion badly.
Okay, visuals, lack of voice acting, anything else fueling the negativity. I thought the return of Mega Evolutions was supposed to be a big win.
It mostly is. People were excited. But there's a catch with how you get some of them. Specifically, some key megastones, like for the Kalos starter Pokémon, are apparently locked behind online ranked battle.
Oh. So you have to play competitively online to get megas for your starter.
Seems like it for some of them, yeah. Which, for the huge chunk of the player base that's mostly single player or just plays casually with friends, that feels like a barrier, almost like a paywall, or at least an accessibility issue, locking cool content behind a mode they don't want to engage with.
Right, so even a positive feature had a frustrating string attached for many players.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this. We asked if it's corporate slop or a fresh evolution. Where does the consensus seem to land, looking at everything?
I think the fairest assessment is that Legends, Z-A, is a game of huge extremes. On the one hand, you have genuinely innovative, exciting, real-time combat when it works. And you have genuinely impressive performance, that smooth 60 Fs on Switch 2. Those are real steps forward. But those gains came at the cost of scope. The city setting, while dense, feels restrictive and visually underwhelming to many. And the lack of overall polish, like the silent cutscenes and UI issues, combined with the high price, just left a really sour taste for a large part of the audience. They see the potential, especially compared to Arceus, and feel Z-A didn't quite stick the landing.
So the combat concept is strong, performance is better, but the world building and visual presentation didn't keep pace. The innovation in one area highlighted the stagnation in another, maybe?
That sums it up pretty well. Many critics even concluded by saying the ideal future would be combining Z-A's combat and performance with Arceus' sense of exploration and environmental detail.
Okay, so summing up, Z-A's action combat, a qualified success. The single city focus and graphics, much more divisive, causing this huge split.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. The Legend games are clearly Game Freak's test kitchen, right? Trying out new ideas, real-time battles here, the historical setting, and open zones in Arceus.
Yeah, they're the experimental arm.
So, if this real-time combat is deemed a success, maybe the mainline games stick with turn-based and Legends becomes the action series. But here's the rub. Players are clearly demanding higher visual fidelity, more polish, no more silent cutscenes. That costs money.
Right.
So can Game Freak keep this experimental Legends series going, keep pushing boundaries with gameplay like in Z-A, without also making that big leap in budget and graphical polish that players are practically screaming for across the entire franchise now? Is amazing combat truly enough if the game still looks like it's from 2 generations ago? That seems to be the core tension moving forward.